Really?
Yeah, so we hated it. But, you know, so it's like, yes, you really do things.
Mr. Carlton, do you want to introduce your wife? Or would you like me Did everybody sign? Sounds like a nice term. Will you have some in the yes. But I'll still be back. You'll read there. Anybody else? Yoli needs to do signs. Hello, welcome. Let's get started and we can get out of here. Oh, did I say that? This is Paula Carlton, Dad's wife. And she agreed to come in and speak with us today about eating healthy or
Eating healthy, heart health and eating healthy, weight management, all that stuff. Anything you want to hear about. I'm willing to talk about.
She's a wealth of knowledge.
Yes, I will try.
Take it away.
I will try. Hello. I know many of you. Can we just go really quick around the room where you work and what you do? And who you are?
Janitor. Cindy. Janitor high school. Business manager. Mary, fifth grade teacher.
Okay.
Kat, middle school, Parkview, speech and language.
Yoli, occupational therapist.
Karen, Parkview, first grade. Trisha, secretary, Parkview, and now middle school. Marianne, Parkview, technology undergrad.
Janet, district office assistant, administrative assistant.
Brittany, first and second grade next year.
Patty, sixth grade.
Angie, accounts payable and purchasing.
Shelley, high school science.
Louise, high school math. And Jane, sixth grade.
Jackie, fourth grade. Sarah, fourth. Hi.
Oh, Julie, sixth.
Well, thank you. I have been in healthcare since 6 or 7 years as a certified nursing assistant, but then really in the last 15 years as a nurse practitioner in primary care. Received my doctorate degree in 2012, and my focus was on weight management actually when I went back for my doctorate degree, and it was perfect timing because what has happened this past year with the Patient Affordable Care Act is actually weight management should be a covered benefit, just like any other preventative medicine that is out there. So your mammograms are covered, your prostate is covered, all of that type of stuff, and actually weight management is covered as well. So I was able to get that going with the Medicare population and work with about 10 patients on helping them out with weight management. And it was really cool. So I'll talk a little bit about that when I give the talk. I am the mother of Jordan Andrew. That is not Todd Carlton in the picture, but you guys all know who Todd Carlton is, so I thought I would substitute another picture. A very proud picture that I took this past summer with Jordan Nelson and my little son Andrew, who is head of the Fuel Up to Play 60 program, which is a great program in Wisconsin and a great program for schools such as Mayville. So check it out online. It's got Fuel Up to Play 60. And what it is it's sponsored by the Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board. It's actually a national campaign. So it's sponsored by milk marketing boards around the country as well as the NFL. So you'll see it in the end zones, like at the Packer game, you'll see Play 60 in the end zones. And so they sponsor this program that is led by kids who teach other kids. So Andrew is responsible for teaching other kids to eat well. So that's your fueling up and to play for 60 minutes every day. And he has just been given the honor of actually being the state representative for Wisconsin. So they'll be going down to Texas and learning more about the program and coming back and teaching other people about it. So, a pretty cool thing. We are also chicken farmers. And I live in Wisconsin, but I love the sea and the mountains. Someday I'll be there. And I'm new to a smartboard, so we'll see how that goes. So since Todd is here, I had to throw in this little disclaimer that although I'm going to be maybe sounding a little preachy about what we should be doing with our bodies, I know I'm not perfect. I don't pretend to be perfect, but we try and achieve excellence, and by that, hopefully, we can get there. And then also this. What's really hard and really amazing is giving up being perfect and just really working on becoming yourself. And that's what I encourage people to do every day in my practice, is I'm really just working with them on how to individualize their own health care. And that's what I hope to do with you today. So, why do I want to talk to you about this? First off, I was just at a conference the other day, and it was a 2-day, all-day conference, and the lady was talking about how we get little hits from looking at our phone. You know, those little like dopamine hits that increase our wonderful endorphins in our body, much like we do if we are addicted to something else. And so what I wanted this presentation to look like is as if you were going home and looking on your Facebook site or social media site, so that you didn't have to like look at your phone at all through the presentation. Some of you might not be on social media, some of you might. So I threw in a couple of e-cards every now and then just to get some humor in there. But of course we talk about weight management, we talk about health because we get concerned about causes of death. And the causes of death, of course, being the #1 cause of death being heart disease, the #2 cause of death being cancers. And both of them, we know, are very much related to lifestyle. And so as opposed to this surgeon who is talking about funky music, there are other things that we can do for our health. So premature death and chronic disease are attributable to 10 behaviors. So when we look at specific causes of death, we say most people die from heart disease. And then we say followed up by cancer and many different types of cancer. For women, lung cancer actually being the #1 cancer that we die of. Many women are concerned about breast cancer, and it's the most diagnosed cancer that is out there, but lung cancer actually is the one that we die of most often. They looked at all the research and they said, okay, yeah, this is what we die of, but what causes these medical conditions? So in 1993, an article went into the Journal of the American Medical Association and stated that 10 behaviors actually cause the majority of the deaths in our country. And these 10 behaviors are tobacco use, dietary patterns, physical activity level, alcohol consumption, exposure to germs, toxins, firearms, sexual behavior, motor vehicle accidents, and use of illicit drugs. Those behaviors, when you look at the costs in our country, actually are the top 5 medical conditions are responsible or are caused by these as well. So the top 2 being the heart disease and the cancer, actually we spend 50% of our healthcare dollars on just those 2 medical illnesses. So that's why it's important, certainly, to talk about. We talk a lot about our heart, and we talk a lot about our brains, because of course we don't want to have heart disease and we don't want to have a stroke. But the important organs that we really should be talking much more about, because these are the organs that really will affect those 2 major systems, includes the intestinal system, particularly the liver and how it detoxifies things. And then in this picture, it's actually showing the adrenal glands, which are 2 little spots that sit on top of the kidneys that are very much responsible for response to stress that we have in everyday life. And I'm sure you guys in the health or in the education profession don't have any stress at all, so don't know what I'm talking about. But those adrenal glands secrete something called cortisol, which is a hormone, and our basic hormone that sits into our body. It actually is kind of the hormone that holds on to all the other hormones in our body. And when that hormone gets off, all of the other ones can be off as well. So these are really the important things that we should be taking care of. Yes, we have to take care of our heart. Yes, we have to take care of our brain, but we really have to take care of what flows through our intestines, how our adrenals function, and what our liver is. And it's because of something called metabolic syndrome that we're seeing more and more and more diabetes in our country. I think the latest estimate that I heard that by 2020, which is 6 years off, that they're proposing even up to a 50% to 80% jump in diabetes. Right now, it's been incredible in the last 5 years. I've been really looking at lab results and diagnosing in the last 15 years to see the huge jump in diabetes or prediabetes. And that's all really because of what is happening in our digestive system and what is happening with our adrenal glands. All of these cause inflammation in the body, raises our blood pressure, it alters our blood sugar metabolism, and all of that can be because of the body's imbalance of metabolism, which can also lead to overweight and obesity and other lipid disorders. Oh, let me go back. I wrote that on there, the 80-20 rule. So just start to now keep in mind that there is this kind of rule out in healthcare that says a lot of times we can blame those 10 health or those 10 behaviors on health conditions, but 80% of the time we can actually link it more to nutrition and dietary intake, and 20% of the time we can link it more to physical activity. So of those 10 health behaviors, the top 3 really are smoking, of course, but then nutrition and exercise, which has everything to do with those medical conditions. So, how do I keep my body well, is the question everyone wants to know. What do I need to be doing to prevent heart disease, cancers, and diabetes? And I thought if what we would do is listen to about a 3-minute talk from Dr. Andrew Weil. Dr. Andrew Weil has been around for years and years and years. He is great at what's called integrative medicine, which means that he really puts Western medicine together with Eastern medicine, and he tries to come up with the best solution in both worlds. And what he's going to talk a little bit about is inflammation, and there's a couple of points in there that I love that he says. If I just push on it, does it?
Maybe double tap it.
No, it
All
doesn't
right.
look blue.
We'll click it. There we go.
Inflammation is the cornerstone of the body's healing response. We all know it on the surface of the body. It's local and heat redness, swelling, and pain. That's the way the body gets more nourishment and more immune activity to an area that's under attack. But inflammation is so powerful that it's very important that it stays where it's supposed to stay and ends when it's supposed to end. If inflammation persists, if it serves no purpose, it becomes productive of disease. It destroys tissue and causes damage. And so in the body, inflammation is very tightly regulated. There are forces that increase inflammation and forces that decrease inflammation. And these have to be in balance so that inflammation is ready when it's needed and it can be called off when it's not needed. There is I think, growing awareness that many chronic degenerative diseases, and certainly I think all of the diseases of aging, are rooted in inappropriate think of even the most interesting connections with cancer, because when I was studying medicine, and up until relatively recently, all of these diseases were seen as very separate. There would be nothing in common between coronary heart disease and cancer. But in fact, the same hormones that upregulate inflammation also stimulate cells in the body. So anything that pushes the body in the direction of increased inflammation is also pushing the body in the direction of increased possibility of movement transformation. And I think the exciting possibility here is that if all these diseases have a common root, then there's a common strategy for dealing with them. Inflammation is influenced by genetics. It's influenced strongly by nutritional factors, and that's what I'll talk to you about tomorrow. It's influenced by toxins that we're exposed to in the environment. It's influenced by stress and emotional states. So a lot of that is under your control. And I think one of the key points of healthy aging and achieving compression of morbidity is adopting and constructing an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. That is, in all the areas that you have control over, doing things that help contain inappropriate inflammation. I think you could make a case that most people in our part of the world go through life in a pro-inflammatory state. And that, allergy might be one manifestation of that in early life. Autoimmune diseases may be. But I think the more interesting and important possibility is that long-term, that inappropriate, low-level, chronic inflammation, and not where you're aware of it, this is going on internally, is the root cause of these big categories of disease aging.
So, one of the other organs that are really, really important to talk about is he talks about inflammation probably being the root cause of heart disease. The root cause of cancers is our blood vessels and how things are transported through our blood vessels. And he said one very interesting thing which is debated about all the time. And by no means am I saying if you're on cholesterol medication that you should block cholesterol medication. But one of the things that he talks about is that cholesterol coming to the aid of the inflammation might actually be a healing process. We know that cholesterol is not always a bad thing. We need cholesterol, we need fat in our body because fat is a soothing, calming hormone that comes into our body. So he's talking a lot about inflammation, how do we calm it? And like he said, he has something called the anti-inflammatory diet. It's a pyramid that he came up with. He's a huge lover of mushrooms. He's got a whole section just for them because of their anti-inflammatory effect. But of course, the base of that pyramid are fruits and vegetables versus the basis of the old pyramid that was developed by the Kellogg's Association years and years ago, which of course cereal and grains. So thankfully, we've gotten rid of that. So our blood vessels, and I love this pictogram of, our blood vessels are obviously the biggest organ in our system and the most important because they're going to be transporting this blood to all of our organs, and we really need to keep those looking good. And I don't mean to necessarily connect that means it's good for us to have this excellent looking cholesterol profile, but certainly cholesterol can have something to do with it. And what matters about cholesterol can be whether or not we have a good amount of HDL, which is our good heart-healthy cholesterol that helps pull yucky stuff away, and not a high amount of triglycerides or LDL. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So there are myths about cholesterol. Cholesterol is bad for you. We actually need cholesterol. The fact is that there's only one type of cholesterol. It's broken down into a couple of different parts. We need to make sure that our full profile looks good. Blood pressure, of course. So if we imagine that the pipes in our system, the blood vessels in our system need to be clean and smooth, just like if we turn on our faucet at home, we can't have corrosion on the inside, or the faucet can't be under too much pressure. If we have it under too much pressure, then the blood doesn't flow through there as well. So our blood pressure needs to be good. And a sign of good blood pressure is when it's 120/80 or less and not too low. A sign of high blood pressure is 140/90 But we even know that as it gets to 130 over 80 to 85, that there must be some inflammation that is occurring already in the body, and we need to get that under control. And then lastly, what else can potentially affect our vessels as well as our body is something called body mass index, which has to do with our height versus our weight, done in a calculation, and we come up with what is a normal body mass index versus what is maybe an overweight or obese body mass index, or even underweight. We know that underweight is not a healthy thing to be as well. And why do we care about this? Because we do have statistics that state that there's a higher risk of death once our body mass index gets into that obese category, and that we have an even higher risk and an even higher risk as it gets into a higher risk category. We know that body mass index applies to about 90% of the population. So there are 10% outliers when it comes to body mass index, like Clay Matthews. He has a body mass index of 33, and I think all the women in the room are fine with his body mass index. We can leave it at 33. We don't need it any lower than that. So we think that that's okay. But that's, body mass index doesn't look at how much fat, how much muscle, how big is your liver. You know, it doesn't take all that into account. It's just looking at your height and your weight. Or your height and your height and weight. So for some people, we also look at waist circumference, and actually it should be looked at in all of us. We can technically have a normal body mass index, but if we have a waist circumference where we're gaining all of our weight in the middle, we know that that is not good for the important organs of our body. Because what is housed in the middle, if we go back to that picture before, that's where our liver is, that's where our intestines are, that's where our adrenals are. If we have too much hanging around the middle, they're not going to function as well. So we want to make sure that we're really focusing on that as well. And I always debate to show a picture like this, but it's kind of good to have some information like this as well, because it just shows that in the yellow, so this is a woman who's that 120-ish pound weight, and this is a woman who's about 250 pounds. And where is the majority of the fat storage? You can see that in her stomach. The liver is raised up, the heart is pushed over. You can see that the liver is engorged compared to this liver, so it's toxified. There's too much going on there. It's not getting rid of waste. The intestines are much more engorged. So there's a lot going on in the stomach, and that certainly can then start putting pressure on the heart, on the lungs, and then will start to cause problems with feeding blood vessel into the brain as well. And lastly, just another quick slide about heart disease. I figured the room would mostly be women. But I put this up here because women often think more about their breasts and worry about that than they worry about their heart. I have women coming in every day, I just don't want to ever have breast cancer. Well, don't worry, because likely you'll have heart disease before you would have breast cancer. Not that we want any of those at all, but this is just an important statement to say women do get heart disease, and we get it a lot. We just tend to get it about 10 years on average later than men, because we do have a hormone estrogen in our system that does seem to be protective of us. So, but we do get heart disease, and we have to be cautious of that, and there's a lot that we can do to make sure that we don't. So again, just a quick slide. This looks like it probably came from the 60s, and that said, how can I keep my heart healthy? Develop a muscular lifestyle, stop smoking, of course, eat a healthy diet. A lot of the things that we talk about today. Watch your sugar. There's a great movie out right now called Fed Up. It's a nice documentary that talks about what they are doing to all of our foods in the United States, that basically, which is run of course by putting corn in everything, which turns into sugar, or they create it into sugar, and how about 80%, I think the statistic is of what's on the shelf has added sugar in it nowadays. It Took me about 5 minutes to find ketchup yesterday that didn't have any added sugar in it, but I found it. So sugar, very, very important. That's why we're seeing the greatest incidence of diabetes, with the greater incidence. Avoid stress. We'll talk about that. Get plenty of sleep. Have fun. Does anyone know a joke that they can tell? No? Have fun. Get regular exercise. So the greatest medicine of all is to teach people how not to need it. I always say I'm in the field of trying to figure out how to keep people out of my office rather than coming into the office, and that's always my goal. And Dr. Weil talked a little bit about genetics. And genetics are very interesting. We're learning so much more about genetics, and I hear this a lot too. Oh, my dad had diabetes, I just know I'm going to get it. Oh, my mom had cancer, I just know I'm going to get it. I'm doomed for that. So all of a sudden it's permission to say I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing because I think that I'm going to get this. Well, what we know about genetics is that, yes, we have changes that occur, and yes, we're given these genes from dad and from mom, and they mix up together, and here we are, but we actually have great control over what is happening as those cells change over, and we can influence them greatly. Even a woman who has the breast cancer gene BCRA1 or 2, her risk is not 100% of getting breast cancer, although her risk has greatly increased 60 to 80% in her lifetime. It's not 100% because we can influence that, and it depends on several different things. So there's a wonderful book called Disease Proof, The Remarkable Truth About What Makes Us Well. Dr. David Katz has done a nice job, and he narrows it down to figuring out what we do with our feet, our forks, and our fingers. So, we all have water. I was looking for one soda. Anybody soda? I was just looking for one. Do you have a regular soda? No. Oh, you don't? Okay. Well.
Sarah does.
Oh, excellent. And it's a can?
She was hiding it right behind my
Can,
water.
Sarah? Thank you.
I didn't drink any though.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I just
Carries that around.
It's a status.
She's collecting money.
Absolutely. Okay.
Pretend it's busy.
So, and I don't mean to.
That's okay.
I'm glad somebody had one because I'm not good at remembering numbers. So.
It's
the
fruit
big
though,
issue.
it's cherry.
Oh. So some of the sugar is a natural sugar. There are
Exactly.
differences, right? So we'll pull out maybe a teaspoon or so of natural sugar. That's in
Bing.
this Pepsi that she has, and other natural flavors that has in there too. So, sugar. So in all seriousness, the American Heart Association a few years ago came out and said, oh, we can't see any more patients with heart disease, we have to figure something out, and we're finally able to figure this out. We think it's related to all the sugar that's in products nowadays. And there are natural sugars, as Sarah pointed out. Cherry is a natural sugar, so if we actually had a cherry, that would be a fine sugar. We can debate that, right? There are some people who say, oh, bananas, too much sugar, too much, regular sweet sugar in there, grapes, too much sugar in there. I mean, we get in those, but for the most part, any fruit, any vegetable is considered a natural sugar. Even dairy, and again, that's debatable, but dairy is a natural sugar, lactose. And so some people, although some of the research says up to 70% of us probably don't do well with dairy, we just figure out a way how to deal with it, how to digest that natural sugar. So even dairy can be a natural sugar for some people, and I'll clarify that later. But regular added sugar, the American Heart Association says, and there are specific guidelines now they came out with. They said, all right, according to what we see, that women should have no more than 6 teaspoons per day of added sugar. Men, 9 teaspoons. Children, and I was generous here, probably 4 to 6 teaspoons, depending on the size of the child, and less, certainly, if they're more in their early childhood stages. And know that 1 teaspoon of sugar equals 4 grams. That's like, if you don't remember anything else in this talk, and I know you'll probably only remember 2 or 3 things, that is probably the number one thing you should try and remember, because I would love for you to all to start reading the labels and see on those cans, on those cartons, how much sugar you're actually getting in when you're taking something in. So Sarah, when she drinks this, is taking in, she's taking in about 10 to 11 teaspoons of sugar in just this. If she would drink that, but she didn't drink it, so that's good. But if she would drink that, she would be taking in 11. So, I know you're exhausted, but is Sarah taking in too much sugar in 1 can of soda? She is.
What if I disperse it throughout the day?
You still
So-
per day. You got 2 days worth, sweetheart. No more sugar tomorrow.
It's a week's worth in there.
Exactly. So it's a tough
But I
thing
burn
to
it
get,
off.
it's a tough thing to get rid of. And it's evil, right, what they have done. Why would anyone put in that much sugar into something and make it taste so good so that we would continue to buy it? And now we have a whole area in the grocery store just for those types of products. And it's probably a very busy area when I go through it. Even something as nice as yogurt, which again will have some natural sugar in there, usually about 11 grams or so. So about 2 to 3 teaspoons of natural sugar that our body would do okay with. But look at how much extra sugar they've added.
Wow.
They've added, yeah. And some of them, I just looked at one of them yesterday, had more than a Pepsi can of sugar in something yogurt, because we always think, let's have some yogurt in the morning time. So really the only yogurt, if you can have yogurt, should be a plain yogurt, and you should add your own fruit into your yogurt and not trust what they're adding into it, because they're adding too much sugar. So what happens if we take in 11 teaspoons or more per day? Well, it changes our metabolism, and it actually, sugar is to be used for energy, right? Energy is great. That's why they said, yes, we can have some added sugar. That's fine for our system. But when we take in too much, it actually changes around. The pancreas gets too tired from that. It can't secrete enough of something called insulin to make up for that. And so it takes it and it stores it right up into our liver. It transfers it over to a bad cholesterol called triglycerides, which is a type of fat. And where is it stored? Right into our belly area. So, and where don't we want it? Right in through here. So we really want to make sure that we are not taking in too much sugar. And some people have great metabolisms, like Sarah could take that in and we might not notice at all what's happening. What's happening at all in her system, because some people just have better metabolisms, but sometimes we're taking in other sugars from other places, we're not burning it off, and it's catching up with us in the end. So sugar, 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 really, really important. And why is it important? Because that gets to the whole carb talk for people. Should I have carbs? Should I not have carbs? We go through shifts and stages, just like we do hormones. Should I be on hormones? Should I not be on hormones? Should I be on hormones? Should I not be on hormones? We go through the same as far as dietary. We're always going through the shift. And right now it's on sugar and carbs. And so should I have carbs? Well, good carbs are complex carbs, are fruits and vegetables. Truly, if we could get to thinking that fruits and vegetables are carbs and not anything else on our plate, we would be just fine, because they are carbs. That's exactly what they are. So we don't have to think about is the pasta a carb, is the bread a carb, all of that. If we just thought fruits and vegetables were carbs, then we wouldn't have to worry about it. But we know that grains can be carbs as well, and those are important. The only grain, though, that is a really good carb is a whole grain. If it says whole grain bread, no, that's not necessarily a whole grain. The rice that they would make to use bread, but just the rice, not the bread, would be a whole grain. So if we got back to truly whole grain, maybe kick on quinoa now, that type of whole grain, something that wouldn't necessarily be processed down. Anytime they're going to process something, they're going to add in other fillers, particularly sugar and salt. So we have to be very cautious with that. And why? What happens? This little pictorial shows it. When we take in something like a simple carb or a simple sugar, this is what happens to our blood sugar, and then it can drop back down, and we can get feeling like we're going through withdrawal, we get jittery and we think we're hypoglycemic and we need another hit and we need another hit, and that's just the addiction that we're getting with the sugar that we're taking in our body. And eventually that will cause diabetes. And cholesterol. Again, fat is good. Even saturated fat is good. I was completely convinced that saturated fats are good when we had our eggs change absolutely differently from winter to summer or springtime, because now the chickens are heading outside again. And they're getting this wonderful green grass, and they're eating again from the soils, and their yolks are just these bright orange colors, and they were starting to fade over the winter months. So really, our good, healthy, saturated fats come from things that are grass-fed, things that are out in fields and are eating, and we can eat their products. So we're ideally supposed to be eating grass-fed meats. Grass-fed, we're supposed to be eating, we're getting our dairy and our butters from grass-fed animals, and we're getting our eggs from free-ranging or grass-fed chickens. The one fat that we do not want are trans fats. I'm doing okay. Are trans fats. Trans fats are things that are processed through they can raise their, excuse me, I'm looking at this. They can raise your LDL and they can lower your HDL. So these are cholesterol things that we just don't want in our body. If you ever go out to a restaurant, I encourage you to ask for the menu. You will be amazed at still how many things, even though they say they don't have trans fats in them, once you ask for the menu. For instance, the one time not too long ago, I went to Applebee's, asked for the menu. So many things have trans fats in them. So trans fats is the absolute inflammatory creating fat in our system. And the good healthy fats are the monounsaturated fats, like the things we're talking about all the time. Avocados, almonds, olive oil, salmon, these are the things that we should be taking in our diet every day. So Michael Pollan is another good person to go to when it comes up to eating and how should we eat. He says, don't buy anything your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. Avoid products containing ingredients that can't be found in the ordinary pantry. Don't buy anything that lists sugar in the first 3 ingredients and absolutely no high fructose corn syrup, not even a little. Shop at the peripheries of the supermarket. If it can't, I love number 5, and then I won't read anymore, but number 5, if it came from a plant, buy it and eat a lot of it. If it was made in a plant, pass it by. So real food. So what is the definition of food? Go to a church where the pastor constantly has to tell us what the definition of something is before he starts to talk about it. So I like to do that as well, actually. And if we look at the definition, any nutrient, substance that people or animals eat or drink, or that plants absorb in order to maintain life and growth. Maintain life and growth, I think, is what is important. Many foods that we eat really aren't food because it's not maintaining our life and our growth. It's actually taking that away from us. So whole foods, lots of fruits and vegetables. We hear this all the time. Whole grains, seafood, local meats. Natural sweeteners, if we're going to get them in, like honey and syrup, snacks, and beverages. And the beverages they list are water, milk, all natural juices, although if anybody has diabetes, they shouldn't be drinking any juice at all. And I would caution against really drinking juice on a regular basis. You'd much rather eat the fruit.
Oh, there was coffee was on there. Was coffee on there?
Coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah, and as long as that
Need my coffee.
tea, I'm sure, was on there, and green tea. If you're working on your metabolism, you might as well, you can think more about the green tea and less about the coffee, because green tea is going to speed up our metabolism a lot better, and coffee sometimes will cause more inflammation depending on what our other diet looks like. So green tea is good. I thought I'd throw this in here too, because we are talking in a school here, but I'm sure a lot of you think about this at home. is there's a woman by the name of Ellen Satter who comes up with really some good ideas when it comes to teaching our children how to eat well, and I think we can think about this and apply this to ourselves. And it's called the division of responsibility. Basically, what she states is if we can keep this division where it needs to be, we can develop a good, healthy eater. We don't have to worry about them being underweight, overweight, anorexic, bulimic, whatever eating disorders there are out there. If we have this division of responsibility from day one, we're good. So the division goes, the caregiver, the mom, the dad, the person in the food service who makes all the decisions about the food that we give the kids should decide when the child eats, should decide where the child eats, and certainly should decide what the child eats. And what we mean by that is usually giving out a display of foods that they can pick and choose from. The child can decide whether or not they even want to eat it. Yes, your child can say, no, I am not going to eat that tonight. And they can decide how much they're going to eat. We shouldn't be saying, no, you can't be full yet. You have to sit down and continue to eat. We have to allow them to decide when it is they're done eating. So if we can keep that, and if we think about that for ourselves, if we can have someone, ideally, if we can have someone do all these things, but the same thing applies. We have to think about our own awareness of eating. And this is the second thing I would love for you to think about in addition to the sugar. If we think about why am I eating right now? Am I hungry? Am I bored? What's the reason for is it just time? Is it lunchtime and this is when we eat, yet my body says I'm totally not hungry right now? When do I want to eat? What is my body saying? What do I eat? How do I eat? How much? And where do I invest my energy? If we can start to become more aware, and this is part of the thing that, one of the many things that I go through with my patients is, let's make a chart and we actually keep a journal of these very questions so that they can at least do a week-long journal of answering these questions so they get a better understanding of why it is that they're eating and what it is that they're eating. So there is something called the National Weight Control Registry, and it's over 10,000 people who have been successful in being able to lose 30 pounds of weight and keep it off. And it's actually an online registry that people can go to. And what they do is these people sign up for this registry and they keep logs of what it is that they're doing. And then researchers compile that information. And what they find out is this. They find out that of the people who have been able to maintain this weight loss, that 62% of them watch less than 10 hours of TV a week. And I'm sure right now we can apply that to computer usage as well. And of course we have computers at our jobs, so this is anything outside of work. That 78% weigh themselves at least once a week. Weighing yourself can be hard, but it's like taking your blood pressure. Sometimes that's the only way you can tell how you're doing with your treatment. So stepping on the scale and then re-evaluating can be important for some people. 78% of them eat breakfast every day. Of course, we know that breakfast is the thing that gets us up and going, and they say that we should be eating within 1 hour of getting up. If we're not hungry, it means our body is not metabolizing things well. If we don't wake up and within an hour of being awake, we're not hungry, that means, well, why do I still have stuff in my gut? Because I haven't eaten probably for at least 8 hours. And then there's something wrong with metabolism. 90% exercise daily, 98% continue to eat a healthy diet, and 100% say their quality of life is higher. So food tends to be the most widely abused anti-anxiety drug in the United States, and exercise is the most potent and underutilized. Why? Because exercise certainly is a natural endorphin to our system, and that's where we come to cortisol being the greatest, the stress hormone in our body, and how it can completely change our metabolism and the way that we feel. And these are the many aspects that higher cortisol, which causes inflammation, which Dr. Weil was talking about, can cause decreased metabolism, depression, chronic fatigue, sleep deprivation, tunnel vision, hostility, hunger, arthritis. Again, all inflammatory conditions. So we know, you can't calm the storms without trying. The storm will pass. And worrying will never change the outcome. So another piece of this is, I remember hearing a commercial, or ads not too long ago of the oxygen ads that came out like 10 years ago to say if you just breathe in oxygen you would lose weight, but also a lot of meditative ads that are out there as well, and they all have some validity to them. And basically what they're saying is breathe, meditate, pray, take time to relax. These things are very important for us, and sometimes all we're doing is going, going, going. And we are not human doings, we are supposed to be human beings, which means that sometimes we should be resting and not always on the go. Another fact is that if you're feeling stressed all the time, the last thing you want to do is cause more stress and inflammation in the body by saying, I'm going to go off and run a half marathon or train for a marathon or even do a 5K. Sometimes all your body really needs is a good walk in the woods, some yoga, and actually that will be a better way to lose weight than pushing yourself to another extreme, because your body has already felt like it's been pushed to the extreme all day long. So trying to figure out what type of exercise is really good for you is very important. So breathing, as it says, we can only go 5 minutes without breathing, but it's amazing how many patients I will talk with, and I'll observe whether or not they're even breathing while they're talking. You know those people, like high energy, and they're talking, and I feel like I need to sigh for them sometimes just to help them kind of calm down. The breath is really important. Remember we talked about the blood vessels and how it carries oxygen through our body and gets to our organs. If we're not breathing regularly and taking a moment to breathe, that can be hard on our body. So endorphins, we talked about that exercise. We don't like that woman, but we'll get by it. A year from now, you wish you would have started today. So if you're thinking about, all right, I need to make some changes potentially after I hear this. What am I going to do? This is what research says. And mind you, the research that I deal with every day is in a clinic setting, it's in a healthcare setting, so I'm really looking at the Western medicine side of things, not necessarily what's going on in alternative and complementary medicine. So, the United States Preventative Services Task Force, they look at all the research out there, they say what's good, what's not good, and they give them grades just like you guys give your students grades, A, B, C, D. And what they recommend is if you're looking at weight loss, that what we should be doing is, first of all, screening everyone, which is why the first thing that you come into the clinic, it's the most awful thing, they have you get on the scale. And then they do your height, and that's so we can get body mass index. And then that clinician shouldn't be just screening, but should be offering or referring, if you have a body mass index greater than 30, to high-intensive multi-component behavioral intervention. What does that mean? That means that the research says that most people are able to lose weight and sustain it if they're in something intensive. Intensive means whatever they get involved with, they better go at least 12 to 26 times over a year's time. And then from there, they can taper down. So say that you join a Weight Watchers program. Say that you are going to sit down and talk with someone one-on-one with the phone, over the phone. Those should be intensive. They shouldn't be, hey, I'm going to try and lose weight, I'll call you back in a couple of months, I'll let you know how I'm doing. It should be intensive. And multiple components should be involved. This means goal setting, this means stepping on the scale, this means keeping a journal, this means keeping an exercise log of what it is that you're doing. What I love is that Medicare approved coverage for weight management very intensively. It's pretty amazing, where I can meet with a person once a week for 4 weeks. once every other week for 5 months. And then if they manage to lose only 6 pounds, which generally they do very well with, I can still meet with them once a month for 6 months. And what we do each and every time is they bring in their journal, we see what's happening, and we individualize what it is that they're doing. It's generally a slow weight loss, but they're always achieving weight loss throughout the program. Sometimes we hit a little bump and we figure that out and we go from there. But it's very intensive, it's very intentional, and we're really looking at a lot of logical data of what they're doing so we can know. I'm not telling them what diet to follow. We just review what it is they're doing. And then we talk about what ideally does a plate look like. It has lots of fruits and vegetables on it. It has a protein on it, and you might have a carb on it. And maybe there's something to drink. So, and what is that? So that's what we're reviewing, and we're comparing it to what they're doing, and they're setting up all their own goals. I'm really there sitting back just to be the motivator and to kind of point out some things on occasion. So it really comes from the patient the majority of the time. It's just that they're able to take that time out to really review that, which I think is probably the most valuable thing. So wellness. Wellness, of course, just isn't necessarily about nutrition and exercise. There's multiple components. There's spiritual components. There's emotional components. Certainly, sleep is involved in that. How are we filling our purpose? Are we getting social skills, etc.? So it comes from multiple different areas, and we're looking at all of those. So a goal without a plan is just a wish. I want to quit smoking. I want to lose weight. I want to have a healthy heart. How are you going to do that? And I ask people to be very specific when they're going to do that. So we start to look at a few things. We start to look at what their needs are. And we start to look at what their personalities are. I just threw in this one because I'm Chewbacca. And I always love Chewbacca. Chewbacca is the crafter. We start to figure out where they are. Do they just want to do it, but they're not ready to form a plan? And then we start to write down some goals. And you guys know as teachers, you're always asking your kids to set up goals for themselves. So this would be the same way you could do that. And this is the way that you set up a goal. So this is the last thing I want you to really walk away with, is that if you set up a goal, make sure that it's specific. I want to lose weight. Well, how am I going to do that? I'm going to start exercising 3 times a week for an hour, and I'm going to try that for a week, and I'm going to see how it does. Is it measurable? Yes, it is, because I'm going to be able to write down exactly what I'm doing. Is it attainable? Well, all right, I looked at my schedule now. I can't really do it 3 times a week this week, but I'm going to try 2 times a week this week, and I'm going to try and achieve that and see if that works. Is it relevant? Well, yeah, we know that exercise is really important for weight loss. Is it timely or trackable? Again, yes, it is. How can I evaluate it, and am I excited about it? Or does this really sound like, yeah, that's what they told me to do, I really don't want to do it, which means probably in 6 months you won't be doing it, so why start now? Do something that you're going to invest in and stick with, right? And reevaluate and reassess. Did that work? Okay, now I'm going to sit down, I'm going to see how I'm feeling. Maybe I feel great, but maybe the scale didn't change. All right, I feel great, so that's good. How can I build on that and go from there? And that's exactly what I do with patients. So, that is the end of what I have to say. Did anything stick?
4 grams, 1 teaspoon.
There you go, I can give you back your soda. It's got a sip left.
Okay, that's probably
That's all the sugar.
You just stick the sugar back.
Yeah, it's just
Oh, yeah. My husband and I always talk that our jobs are very similar. I just get to see 25 individual people every day, and he gets to see them all at the same time. And there was this equation that I thought was pretty remarkable. Was it on here?